From Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewi. The top stories tonight. President Tinubu urges United Nations to embrace sweeping reforms, 6 permanent seats for Nigeria. News Central hosts town hall series on diaspora voting, amplify voices of Nigerians abroad ahead of next general elections. Former French President Nicolas Sarkozy sentenced to 5 years in prison over criminal conspiracy involving late Libyan leader.
In business, AMCON offloads 34% stake in Unity Bank to Providence Bank ahead of impending takeover.
In sports, FIFA unveils 3 mascots ahead of the 2026 World Cup, biggest tournament ever and first to be co-hosted by 3 nations.
Thank you for tuning in. Tonight begins now. We'll begin tonight at the United Nations headquarters in New York, where President Bola Tinubu has called on the international body to embrace sweeping reforms or risk fading into irrelevance in the face of mounting global challenges. The president, who was represented by Vice President Kashim Shettima, criticized non-action by the UN in the face of mounting global challenges, including worsening conflicts in the Middle East and Africa, while insisting that a 2-state solution remains the most dignified path to lasting peace for Palestine. News Center's correspondent Bettina Uweli reports.
Nigeria's message to world leaders at the 80th UN General Assembly in New York. President Tinubu, who was represented by the Vice President Kashim Shettima, called for fairness and representation, beginning with Nigeria's demand for a permanent seat on the UN Security Council.
I want to make 4 points today to outline how we can do this. 1. Nigeria must have a permanent seat at the UN Security Council. This should take place. This should take place as part of a wider process of institutional reform. 2. We need urgent action to promote sovereign debt relief and access to trade and financing. 3. Countries that host minerals must benefit from those minerals. And 4th, the digital divide must close.
He says that Nigeria has embarked on sweeping economic reforms and called on the world to support Africa's mineral wealth as a blueprint for sustainable development of the continent, warning that resource-exporting nations must benefit fairly from their minerals to reduce inequality and instability.
Our case for permanent seat at the Security Council is a demand for fairness, for representation, and for reform that restores credibility to the very institution upon which the hope of multilateralism rests. This is why Nigeria stands firmly behind the UN-80 initiative of the UN Secretary General and the resolution adopted by this Assembly on 18th July 2025, a bold step to reform the wider United Nations system for greater relevance, efficiency, and effectiveness in the face of unprecedented financial strain.
The president's message was clear: the need for multilateralism to deliver real, visible change or lose its purpose. He says that the time for reform is now, and the world must act before history moves on without the UN. In Abuja, for News Central, Bettina Uweli.
Many thanks, Bettina. We now turn to News Central's lead correspondent, Bernard Akede, who is again at the UN headquarters in New York. Bernard, it's day 3 of the session. Take us through the key events today. Okay, I think we're having a bit of a challenge connecting with Bernard. We could get back to that story and get updates from him subsequently. But for now, still staying in New York, News Central has held its town hall series, this time on diaspora voting, to engage and amplify the voices of Nigerians living abroad ahead of the upcoming 2027 general elections. The series is aimed at educating, informing, and encouraging Nigerian expatriates on the importance of their participation in the electoral process, and also to urge Nigeria's electoral body to push relevant authorities to make their participation possible. Through this interactive session, News Central has provided a platform for Nigerians abroad to discuss challenges, share concerns, and receive critical updates related to voting logistics and rights. The initiative highlights the growing recognition of the diaspora's role in shaping Nigeria's political landscape and ensures their voices are heard in the democratic process. To discuss the readiness and chances of diaspora Nigerians to participate in subsequent elections, I'm now joined by Deputy National Leader, Diaspora Yoruba Self-Determination Movement, Kayode Emola. Thank you very much for being here. Yet again, another bold attempt at amplifying Nigerian voices on the issues that are central to us. This time it is that Nigeria diaspora should not merely be limited to remittances, but that they must have a say in who governs their country, their states, and even their local government areas. Is that too much to ask?
Thank you very much. I don't think it's too much to ask. In the time past, you see the civil rights movement, it was all about voting. The problem and the challenge Nigerians had is that we don't even know what happens to the vote. And when the diasporans are given the power to vote, what people are saying is that will it count? I mean, out of the over 190 nations of the world, we have 141 who have diaspora voting. And Nigeria diaspora is not just any other diaspora. It's a very vibrant set of people. We contribute a lot to global economy. And part of that is what we remit back home. So if people are calling for the power to be able to vote, I think it's not too much to ask. I would even say we can go further to not just restrict it to just voting, but to have the power to be represented. Even if you do it continent-wise or country-wise, if we say continent-wise, we should have 7 representatives from 7 continents on seats reserved in the Nigerian parliament, so that the diaspora voice would not just be limited to remittance, would not just be limited to just voting, but actual representation. And that is when development can start coming down, trickling down to the people who are down there.
All right, quickly, before I ask the next question, is there a device that's a speaking device where you're at? Maybe your TV on, just turn it off because we can hear some kind of echo. Okay, while you're doing that...
Unfortunately, I do.
Sorry?
Yeah, I think there's a TV behind me. I'll just try and get it.
Okay, if you can put it off quickly, and if you can still hear me, I'll just go ahead and ask the question. Speakers at the event were clear about the fact that ideas are not in short supply as to how diaspora voting could be implemented, but the political will to get it done has been the main issue. Talk to us about that. Why is it such a hard task?
Yeah, ideas has not been short. There's always ways to go about it, and there are a lot of things you can do. I mean, every country has different ways by which they've made it work. If Nigeria wants to make it work, I think it will better put the diaspora to engage with the government back home and to engage with the electoral process to make sure it's done in an ethical way that people see that, yes, my voice really matters, not just my money, and that we're putting our money where our mouth is.
Where exactly does the advocacy for diaspora voting go? Is it to the National Assembly or the presidency or even international bodies like donor agencies and lenders? Where is this call going to exactly?
It's going to possibly the National Assembly, because that's where the laws are being made. There has to be an enabling law for it to come into effect. So it has to go through town halls, through cultural societies, and the people themselves, both the people in the diaspora, need to come together, not just government orchestrated organization. There needs to be series of organizations coming up to promote that attitude of voting. We look at the percentage of people actually voting in Nigeria, is actually quite low. Look at the last election, we have about maybe 20, 30 million people voting in a country of over 200 million. That's like say 15, 20% of the people voting. We need voters' participation, and we need there is need to engage both the National Assembly and the presidency, and even the states and the local government machinery, to ensure that the diaspora, we're not just limited to just providing our money, which goes into all sorts in boosting the Nigerian economy, but actually having A, the power to vote, and B, reserve some special seats for those who are in the diaspora so that they can also be represented through their representatives.
Let's talk about the logistics of this all. I mean, the idea of diaspora voting is welcome, but then you look at already here in Nigeria, we have challenges with INEC when it comes to logistics, the tech of it. We know what the Beavers did in the last elections. How possible? Of course, we know there are steps at the National Assembly already. There's a second reading of the bill for diaspora voting to amend the Constitution. But what are the chances that all of these logistics, from the tech of it to the constitutional review, will be concluded for diaspora voting to begin in 2027?
It's quite possible. Where there is a will, then there is a way. They can always make it happen. I don't believe that there is no, it's not possible. It's just, you see in Nigeria, they always try to find excuses for things not to be done. But when you talk of INEC, I could remember in 2011, I was part of, I was the presiding officer in Nasarawa State. And during the capturing, a lot of the people were not giving voters cards. So people were just doing capturing without actually getting their voters cards. So they do capturing and they go. But in my polling units, because I was tech savvy, I was able to do it, and people were getting their card. So everybody was trooping down to my own station because they knew they were going to get it. Now it comes about training. So if they get all the materials on time, if they get all the machineries and train people on time, the problem we see is that they leave it till the last minute, maybe 1 or 2 months before the election. And everybody, we are so used to this fire brigade approach. So if they start it now to get the materials and start training the personnel, then they can conduct a free and fair election that people will be proud to say, yes, I was a part of it. So, because at the moment now, it's just the people in the diaspora are saying, you are the people causing problems for us because you are the people voting bad leaders.
All right,
if the people in the diaspora can have the opportunity to participate, then maybe they can bring about change in that country.
Thank you very much for speaking with us. We appreciate your time. Tonight returns after this short break. Do stay with us. You're watching Tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. President Tinubu urges United Nations to embrace sweeping reforms, seeks permanent seat for Nigeria. News Central hosts town hall series on diaspora voting, amplifies voices of Nigerians abroad ahead of next general elections. And former French President Nicolas Sarkozy sentenced to 5 years in prison over a criminal conspiracy involving late Libyan leader. Let's go back to New York, where News Central's lead correspondent Bernard Akede is standing by to provide a recap of today's events at the ongoing UN General Assembly. Bernard, good to see you again. Day 3. Run us through the key events today and some of the takeaways.
Felicity, for me, the key events, I would say, were the speeches given by two presidents who I would say are going through similar issues. And of course, that's talking about the president of Somalia here in Africa and then the Palestinian president. Most interestingly, I would say the Palestinian president, because he had to give his own speech virtually, like most had predicted. And of course, that was because he wasn't granted visa to come to the United States of America. Of course, we know the issues going on between Palestine and Israel. Now, I'll start with him. The Palestinian president, first of all, condemned entirely the bombardment of Palestine, most of parts of Palestine by Israel. He thanked most profoundly the countries that have been holding pockets of protest peaceful, he did say, in their own regions for the sake of Palestine. He also called for a complete ceasefire by Israel. He called for the United Nations to use its goodwill, to use its good name and its power to see that this needless war, as they put it, is brought to an end. He also said that the country would ensure that that Palestine will be away from the hands of terrorists, basically, and the law and order will be restored. He said things like to ensure that there will be one unified government in Palestine and that government will see to the smooth running of the state. But he also asked that Israel evacuate the West Bank and other parts that they have occupied. And he's looking towards the international community to also support Palestine and other warring countries or other war-torn countries, in seeking peace going forward. And what the Somalian president also said, coming to Africa, was quite similar to what the Palestinian president did say, starting with the Somalian president also stood in solidarity with the people of Palestine and the president. I'm also remembering that Somalia has also been experiencing, unrest for a number of years, I beg your pardon, and that the president of Somalia equally called for the United Nations, particularly the Security Council, to take charge of the issues going on and ensure that there is indeed security in parts of Africa and, of course, around the world. And now, finally, of course, the Somalian president joined his voice with several other African presidents asking and demanding that Africa be given a permanent seat at the Security Council. And the hope is that if Africa does have that permanent seat, perhaps there might be changes in the Security Council. Perhaps some countries will not have a monopoly of, the running of security issues around the globe. Of course, by some countries, we're talking about some of the big countries who are the big donors to the United Nations. So basically, I think I would like to say that these were my two takeaways when it comes to day 3 of the 88th United Nations General Assembly.
Bernard, what have been the reactions, especially African leaders, following the jaw-breaking addresses by Nigeria's Vice President and Kenya's President William Ruto?
So, well, first of all, while those addresses were going on inside the hall right there, you could see some reverberating rounds of applause, particularly for the two presidents you talked about, William Ruto and Nigeria's Vice President Kashim Shettima, representing the President of Nigeria. And this is because both of them hit hard on certain points that not just Africa, but the rest of the world should listen to. Before we started at the very beginning, day 1, I did mention that there will be a lot of similarities when you listen to what African leaders will be saying. And some of those similarities include, 1, that Africa be given a permanent seat at the Security Council. 2, debt relief, such that rather than servicing humongous debts, Africa can move those resources towards the SDGs and developing their countries. 3, there's also talk about migration, international trade, and of course, climate change, and then of course there's this heavy conversation concerning AI. So for each of these topics and probably a few more, each time these world leaders hammered on them, you could hear the applause within the crowd coming from both Africans and non-Africans alike, because truly these conversations need to be had. And I'll end with the Nigerian Vice President, Kashim Shettima, who did not ask, but in his words, it was more like a demand that not just Africa, but that Nigeria as a
called for fairness and representation. Beginning with Nigeria.
Okay, Sims, we have the challenge again with a network. We apologize for the interruption, but I was just getting to talk about Vice President Kashim Shettima's insistence that Nigeria gets a permanent place in the United Nations Security Council. All right, thank you, Bernard. Let's go to other developments tonight. There was panic in Mangoro area of Lagos on Wednesday evening following the partial collapse of a two-story building. The structure, which was originally a single-story building before another level was added, gave way unexpectedly. News Center's Victor Mbadike has more.
Modupeola Street in the Mangoro area of Lagos was thrown into panic on Wednesday evening after this building under construction partially collapsed. It was originally a one-story building standing for over 2 decades. The developer's decision to now add another floor has not gone as planned.
I don't know why you would want to structure something that the foundation can carry. It's obvious the foundation is not strong enough. That's why the building collapsed. Now, you not only endangered yourself, but other people as well. If there was a child in this house, because apparently some of the blocks and everything got to the other compound. If there was a kid in the next house, we'll be seeing a different story.
Almost 8 persons. There were at least 8 workers on site when the building came crashing down. Authorities say all of them are now receiving medical treatment.
About 8 broke leg. About bringing the guy out, but already the Lagos State are here already. Before we can get the boy out already, but the two leg is condemned. We are passing on top of him, but we don't even know. Because he can't feel pain, can't say, before we can discover there is someone in under.
A view from the adjoining building gave a clear picture of the damage, with cracks spreading across the structure.
I don't even know what to say to this. This is a big mess. It's greediness, nothing but greed, bro. Because you already had a solid structure. You had a solid structure and you say you want to build an apartment. The way you go about it, you want to build an apartment, you have a duplex. You leave your duplex in front, then maybe you break the back and build it on what you broke, like from the ground up. Not that you have something that you now want to mount and...
The Lagos State Building Control Agency has since sealed up the entrance to prevent further activity on the site.
Behind me, what remains of this structure is now cordoned off, a silent reminder of how quickly a building can turn into rubble when corners are cut. Authorities said they will begin to carry out its own investigations to find out exactly what happened here. In Lagos, for News Central, Victor Mbadike.
The Kogi State Emergency Management Agency has called for stronger collaboration with key emergency and response stakeholders to mitigate the adverse effects of flooding in the state. Executive Secretary of the agency, Mukhtar Atima, made this call during a visit to several key stakeholders in a bid to strengthen its response ahead of the flood season. News Center's correspondent, Mono Balagbobo, reports from Lokoja.
A visit to the State Commissioners for Information, Women Affairs, Police Command and the National Inland Waterways Authority. The Executive Secretary of the Kogi State Emergency Management Agency, Mukhtar Atima, assured that the Governor Usman Ododo is committed to ensuring the safety of the people of Kogi.
As a key member of the new direction team, proactiveness is one of the key watchwords of the present governor of the state, Alhaji Ahmad Usman Ododo, who at all times says he does not want anything to happen to his people.
The stakeholders pledged their support for the agency, promising to work together to ensure the state is prepared for the flood season.
I want to assure the State Emergency Management Agency that on behalf of the Ministry of Information and Communications, we will have this handshake of collaboration and synergy with you so that together we can do a lot of sensitization It is not just about calling for help. It is also about calling on our people to embrace safety. We should work hand in hand. We should work for our children, not just for ourselves today, not for what we get to gain today, but what is my contribution today? What will my children tomorrow say about us, please?
The lead agency, they are supposed to have the equipment, but like I always say, you won't always have it all. And then if there's synergy between us and them, once they beckon on us, anything they need that we have, I assure you we will ensure that we provide it without them going through any stress.
And I want to assure you, in areas where you need our collaboration, within the ambit of our own power, we will collaborate.
The SEMA Executive Secretary noted that no lives were lost during the last year's flooding, expressing optimism that with early collaboration, the state can effectively manage these year's challenges. In Lokoja for News Central, Morno Balagbubu.
Tonight returns after this break. Do stay with us. Thank you for staying with us. Relief is on the way for hundreds of disengaged workers of the defunct College of Education Ekiadolo and pensioners from the College of Education Igwebe in Edo State. Governor Monday Ukpeholo has directed that a second tranche of their entitlements be paid within the next 2 weeks. News Central's Edo State correspondent Ameze Bazwaye reports.
For more than 6 years, their voices went unheard. 682 former staff of the defunct College of Education Ekiadolo and 32 pensioners from the College of Education Igwebe. Today, their tears are slowly turning to relief. They had earlier received part of the 4.6 billion naira owed them, and now Governor Monday Ukpeholo has ordered the release of a second tranche of payments within 7 to 14 days.
We exist as a government because of the people. And that is why when the whole problem of the College of Education, both at Ekiadolo and even at Igwebe, was brought to his attention, he acted on it very swiftly and gave instruction that things should be put in place to make sure that it is corrected and that people receive what is due to them.
The disengaged staff, some of whom lost their jobs in 2019 under the previous administration, say while they are grateful, they are also appealing to be reintegrated into the state's contributory pension scheme so they won't be left stranded when the payments end.
Babak Okpewolo, I'm here thanking you. When I came here in 2019, when we were demonstrating, they said the opposition were using us. My husband was sick and I came, eventually he died. I am a widow. I was left empty, nothing to fall back on. But today, he has put smiles on our faces.
We are happy. Okpewolo came without seeing our faces, without hearing from us. He said, you have suffered for too long. For 6 years, we'd have been at home. No job, nothing.
A delegation of the former workers met with Governor Okpewolo directly to present their demands, expressing both appreciation and renewed hope. In Edo, for News Central, Ameze Bazwaye.
The National Union of Electricity Employees has directed its members nationwide to withdraw their services indefinitely, accusing the Transmission Company of Nigeria of failing to address long-standing welfare and operational grievances. In a circular by its acting General Secretary, Dominique Igwebike, the union said the strike became unavoidable following the expiration of an ultimatum served on TCN. The union outlined its demands, including the implementation of the national minimum wage, provision of working tools and protective equipment, an end to the casualization of workers, and payment of salaries reportedly owed since April 2025. It also cited unresolved issues arising from the unbundling of TCN, outstanding retirement benefits, and the need for operational vehicles. Now, the Ideas Pre-G20 conference launched in Johannesburg, South Africa on Thursday, uniting global policymakers, economists, and thought leaders to push for a transformative shift in economic policy ahead of South Africa's G20 summit in November. The event tackles critical issues such as inequality, debt finance, climate justice, digital transformation, and the role of youth and civil societies. New Central's business correspondent Juliet Rowland is there and tells us more in this report.
Theme towards a needed paradigm shift in economic policy, the Ideas Pre-G20 conference opened in Johannesburg, spotlighting Africa's present challenges.
The main problem for African countries is losing their natural resources without proper compensation. So non-renewable in South Africa, coal, gold, platinum, iron ore goes out, and the multinational corporates don't reinvest. So we all need exchange controls. Most of Africa, including Nigeria, suffers from having liberalized. That is, most of the people at this conference would agree. The World Bank, the IMF, that ideology, Washington consensus, desperately needs a replacement, one that is conscious of our better stewardship of natural resources.
Africa faces challenges, including debt, limited climate finance, and uneven digital access, while pushing to reduce commodity dependence, strengthening trade terms, and empowering youths, steps that could reverse the continent's vulnerable commercial position and boost its role in the global economy.
Well, what Africa should do, it cannot do anymore because it has already made all the previous policy decisions which now trap it in the world economy. More developing countries, especially in Africa, to really think about changing their economic relations with the rest of the world.
The opening address highlighted the human cost of debt, children denied health care, jobless graduates, and farmers without irrigation, and called for reformed development banks, fair debt restructuring, stronger local financing, and a currency risk-sharing scheme.
I think it will be a medium to long-term process, but I think it's incredibly important to make donors realize how incredibly dangerous currency risk is, and that we need to think about innovative ways to address it and go beyond existing market structures and think about innovative instruments which reflect the true risk, the true African risk.
As the conference continues to September 27th, it casts the Global South as a partner, not a debtor, in building a just order. If global elites heed this calls, the G20 could embrace equity. If not, marginalization and harsher realities may deepen. In Johannesburg for News Central, I am Juliet Rowland.
To one of our headline stories tonight, former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been sentenced to 5 years in prison for criminal conspiracy linked to his 2007 presidential campaign funding. A Paris court found that Sarkozy allowed close associates to solicit funds from Libya's late leader Muammar Gaddafi. The verdict, announced Thursday, marks the first time a former French president faces jail time. Sarkozy immediately condemned the ruling as an incredible injustice upon leaving the courtroom.
Trahit les Français. Ce n'est pas moi. C'est cette injustice invraisemblable auquel vous venez d'assister. Je n'ai aucun esprit de revanche. Je n'ai aucune haine. Mais que chacun comprenne bien et l'entende. Je me battrai jusqu'à mon dernier souffle.
Continuing our coverage of the UN General Assembly, Palestinian leader Mahmoud Abbas has accused the Israeli government of using starvation as a weapon and condemned its ongoing settlement expansion, which he said makes a future Palestinian state impossible. Abbas, while addressing the United Nations General Assembly via video, called for recognition of Palestinian statehood and emphasized the need for justice as a foundation for peace. Abbas expressed readiness to work with President Trump, Saudi Arabia, France, and the UN to implement a recently agreed peace plan aimed at ending the occupation and achieving a just and lasting peace. Tonight returns shortly with business, sports, and entertainment news.
In business, global debt surged to a record $337.7 trillion in Q2 2025, rising over $21 trillion in 6 months, driven by looser financial conditions, a weaker US dollar, and accommodative central banks, according to the Institute of International Finance. Now, major debt increases were seen in China, the US, Japan, and Europe, while the global debt to GDP ratio edged slightly lower to just about 324%. Emerging markets hit a new high at 242.4%. Government debt, especially in G7 nations and China, drove the increase. The IIF warned of growing fiscal pressure, rising bond yields, and record upcoming debt repayments in emerging markets. Let's also tell you that Amcon has sold its 34% stake in Unity Bank PLC to Providus Bank, marking a key step in the planned merger between the two banks. The deal, finalized on September 25, 2025, involved the transfer of 4 billion Unity Bank shares at $1.66 each, totaling over 6.5 billion naira, according to the Nigerian exchange. The acquired shares will be transferred to Providus Bank, reinforcing its takeover of Unity Bank. This transaction is part of a broader merger strategy aimed at fully integrating Unity Bank into Providus Bank's operations in the near future. And talking stocks now, the NGX All-Share Index gained 0.31% today to close at 147,157.49, with market capitalization at 89.342 trillion naira. Now, talking about sectoral performance, we see that the banking sector led the charge with a 1.02% uptick, fueled by gains in some select stocks. Insurance slipped 0.41%, pressured by weaker performance in universal insurance. Oil and gas continued its gain, 0.74%. Consumer goods added 0.31%, while industrial goods held steady, well, actually remained bland, without no significant movement, according to what we tracked. But then investors were upbeat in financials and energy through pockets of weakness, which actually persisted in insurance. So that's it for the stock market and business. I am Lekon Obanjo. We'll bring you sports news in a bit.
In sports, FIFA has unveiled the official mascots for the 2026 World Cup, with each host nation represented by a unique character. In a departure from previous World Cup tournaments featuring a single mascot, FIFA has created 3 distinct characters to represent the first ever World Cup hosted by 3 nations. Maple, the Moose, serves as Canada's ambassador, taking the position of goalkeeper. For Mexico, it is Zayu, the Jaguar, representing the nation's rich heritage as a striker, drawing inspiration from the animal's significance in ancient Mayan culture. Clutch, the bald eagle, is a midfielder and highlights the togetherness that all players of that position brings on the pitch. FIFA described the mascots as symbols of unity, diversity, and the shared spirit of football that will define the expanded 48-team tournament scheduled for the 11th of June to the 19th of July 2026. Back home in Nigeria, the Nigeria Football Federation has denied reports suggesting that its statutes will be amended during the upcoming 2025 Annual General Assembly scheduled for the 27th of September. The Federation emphasized that there are no plans to introduce or adopt amendments to its statutes during the Assembly, countering speculation that had circulated in recent days. The Federation described the workshop as an initial consultation phase aimed at aligning discussions with international best practices and governance principles advocated by FIFA and CAF. The governing body also said that no formal decisions or amendments can be made unless a dedicated General Assembly is convened specifically for that purpose. The World Football Governing Body, FIFA, has handed Cape Verde a fine of 5,000 Swiss francs following a pitch invasion by France during their 2026 FIFA World Cup qualifying match against Cameroon. The incident occurred on the 9th of September after Cape Verde secured a hard-fought 1-0 victory over the indomitable Lions. Home supporters stormed the pitch in celebration, prompting FIFA to take action against the Blue Sharks. In response to this sanction, the Cape Verdean Football Federation has appealed to fans to maintain order and discipline, especially with their next qualifier against Eswatini set for the 13th of October. The Federation stressed the importance of avoiding further infractions that could attract heavier penalties, including potential stadium bans. If Cape Verde win that match, they will make history as the smallest nation and the first island nation from Africa to qualify for the FIFA World Cup. And Arsenal defender William Saliba has agreed a new 5-year contract that will keep him at the club until 2030. The France international had 2 years left on his contract, but has now extended his stay as part of the Arsenal's long-term plans. The 24-year-old joined from Saint-Etienne in 2019 and after loan spells in Ligue 1, established himself as a key figure in Mikel Arteta's defense from 2022. He has since made 137 appearances and formed a strong centre-back partnership with Gabriel Magalhaes, who signed his own extension earlier this year. Elsewhere, Liverpool teenager Rio Ngumoha has signed his first professional contract with the Premier League giants. While details were not disclosed, reports indicate the 17-year-old agreed a deal until 2028, the maximum length permitted for players under 18. Ngumoha burst into the scene last month when he came off the bench to score a 100-minute winner against Newcastle United, becoming Liverpool's youngest ever goal scorer. And that's a wrap on Sports Update. I am Udoka Njoko.
Here with the latest entertainment stories, looking good as always.
Felicity, how are you doing today?
I'm great.
And of course, I'm here with the latest gist in the world of entertainment. Now, Spotify has crowned Ira Star as the biggest female Afrobeats artist, cementing her place as one of the leading voices in the global music scene. Now known for hits like Rush and Stability, the 23-year-old has racked up millions of streams worldwide, becoming a Gen Z superstar with crossover appeal. Now, Ira's recognition comes at a time when Afrobeat is dominating international charts, with female artists pushing the boundaries and shaping the genre's future. Now, her rise reflects not just talent, but also the global appetite for African sounds. Now, these beget the question, do we think that Ira Star is truly the queen of Afrobeats right now, or are there other contenders who deserve this crown as well?
I mean, who comes up with these kinds of comparisons, really? Well. She is young, she's doing amazing, but come on.
Yeah. We just have
Queen
to compare
of Afrobeats?
Like, that's
come
big.
On, it makes no sense to
me.
She's good, but let's not even go there. That's my personal view.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, that's a title that Tiwa Savage is trying to say, oh, she's not trying to take that title, let other people take it because there are other people who deserve the title. But just like you said, she's young and she's getting it. Amazing stuff. All right, moving on. Afrobeat superstar Burna Boy is making headlines after clarifying that the legendary Fela Kuti was not his direct source of inspiration. Now, speaking in a recent interview, Burna explained that while Fela's influence on African music is undeniable, his own artistry comes from personal experiences and a mix of global sounds. The Grammy winner emphasized that he respects Fela's legacy, but wants to be seen as carving his own lane rather than being boxed into comparisons. Now, his comments, of course, have since sparked conversations among fans, with some agreeing and others insisting that Fela's legacy still shaped the Afrobeat movement that Burna Boy thrives in today. And I mean, I also have the question now. Can Burna Boy really separate himself from Fela's influence though?
First off, I kind of think that these celebrities bring up these issues. So, I mean, he's the one that brought up the comparison in the first instance.
Yes.
But my view is that he absolutely cannot separate himself from Fela. I mean, do you listen to his sound?
Yes.
Yes, he has his own unique blends and stuff. He has his own unique style, but you cannot separate his music and his sound from what we hear.
I totally agree with you on that one. Totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Well, that does it on Entertainment News tonight. My name is Kate Adeogun.
Finally tonight, as earlier reported, News Central has held its town hall series, this time on diaspora voting, to engage and amplify the voices of Nigerians living abroad ahead of the upcoming 2027 general elections. The series is aimed at educating, informing and encouraging Nigerian expatriates on the importance of their participation in the electoral process. News Central's correspondent, Israel Eferobo, tells us more. Unfortunately, we have a challenge playing that package. We will bring that package in our subsequent bulletin. That is all we have for you tonight. But before we go, here's a quick reminder of our top stories. President Tinubu urges United Nations to embrace sweeping reforms. 6th permanent seat for Nigeria. News Central hosts town hall series on diaspora voting, amplify voices of Nigerians abroad ahead of next general elections. We also brought you news that former French President Nicolas Sarkozy has been sentenced to 5 years in prison over criminal conspiracy involving late Libyan leader. Would love to hear from you. Please send your eyewitness report to the number showing now on your screen. You can follow us on social media. We are at News Central TV. You can choose to watch us live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, Star Times channel 274, Avo TV and on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for your kind attention. Good night.